Before refrigerators, before preservatives, before shelf stable became a personality trait, there was fermentation. Today, in Too Many Cooks in the Kitchen, we're diving into the ancient art of letting microbes do the cooking for us. Is it mold? Is it magic? Is it just fancy pickles? Let's talk about what fermented foods actually do for your gut, your immune system, your cravings, and why that jar of sauerkraut might be more powerful than your supplement cabinet.
Welcome to Too Many Cooks in the Kitchen, where food and health meet real talk and maybe a little friendly fire. I'm Lauren, the daughter.
And I'm Janelle, the mother, but not the SCOBY kind. Today, we are going to dive into the benefits of including fermented food in your diet.
We all know there's more to the human body than meets the eye. We know more about the depths of the ocean than we do about the human brain. The connection between the brain and the gut is undeniable, influencing immune system, hormonal function, and beyond. Would you believe that living inside you, in your gut, is a community of fungus, bacteria, and viruses more unique and biodiverse than planet Earth? Your gut is a living, breathing organism which affects all the functions of your body. A healthy gut is a necessity to overall body, brain, and spiritual health. There are certain foods which benefit and promote a healthy gut microbiome more than any other foods, and that's what we're going to be talking about today.
And I am super excited to talk about this because I love pickles, I love sauerkraut, I love all things that belong to that family of fermented foods. So this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart for sure.
Mine as well.
So
I am very passionate about fermentation, and it is something that I have recently been diving into a lot in my chef career, and it's a very fun experiment, and I believe in the power of fermented foods so much, and I'm always talking about it, so I'm glad that we get to talk about it on the pod today.
awesome. So let's get into some questions. What exactly are fermented foods? And is fermentation the same as rotting?
Well, fermentation and rotting are two totally different things, thank God. Well, they're kind of similar in processes where the food is being broken down. However, rotting is an aerobic chemical process, whereas fermentation is anaerobic. And fermentation is the process of preserving food, whereas rotting, obviously, is the process of food going back to nature. And
Yeah.
and fermentation also helps to promote all kinds of good gut bugs and things, whereas eating rotted food is not good for your health.
Yeah, probably have you have the exact opposite for the
Yes.
for the gut and everything else for sure. So, what are some examples of fermented foods?
Well, there's all kinds of different fermented foods. I think the most common ones or the most well-known ones would be like yogurt and sourdough bread, but also sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir. I know in an earlier episode I mentioned that coffee beans are fermented, tea is also fermented, vanilla beans are also fermented. Yeah, there's all kinds of different fermented foods, and each one has a little bit of a different, they target different things in your gut, and the good gut bacteria like to eat different things with the different fermented foods. That's why it's good to always get a variety of these things into your diet.
What about pickles, though? And this isn't really a question we have written down, but just to kind of go off topic a little bit. Because,
Yeah,
like, I think a lot of people think because, like, sauerkraut, all right, well, pickles are similar. But I
pickles.
would say there's a cautionary tale in that.
Yes. So, well, vinegar is a fermented process, and you can make pickles with vinegar. Also, just as an aside, vinegar and alcohol, like beer and wine, those things are fermented, but they have different, and we'll get into a little bit later. What's produced from the fermentation is a different sort of chemical. Whereas, back on topic, pickles can be fermented, but most of the time they're not actually fermented. Like what you're buying in stores is just made with a brine made from salt and vinegar. But you can make pickles through fermentation, but it is uncommon to find that in the grocery store. If you make it yourself, then it does offer a lot of the same health benefits. But a pickle that's just made quickly through a brining process, like if you're making a quick pickle in, say you're making some like pickled red onions, you boil your liquid, which is generally vinegar, water, salt, and sugar, and then you just pour it over your onions. That process, though delicious, does not really offer the same benefits for your health.
So they're pickled, not fermented.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is really the thing, is like vinegar pickles. The fermentation process, like in sauerkraut, is really the salt and in packing them in such a way that there's no oxygen in there, which is the anaerobic, for those who don't know, just that aerobic is in the presence of oxygen and anaerobic is without oxygen. And so that kind of is just to clear that up from the beginning. So are store-bought fermented foods as good as foods fermented at home? And how do I get started making my own fermented foods? And do you need like a whole bunch of special equipment to get started?
Fermented foods bought in stores versus made at home. I mean, personally, I'm of the mindset that anything you make at home is going to be better because
Of course.
you're using your own hands to make it, your energy is going into it, like the quality of the product that you bought to make that thing. So, I mean, homemade things, in my opinion, are always going to be better than a store-bought product, but that's not to say that store-bought fermented foods aren't going to have some of the same health benefits. I think, if you don't have the time to make these things, then getting them from the store is a very good alternative, and you're still going to be getting, you're still promoting your good gut health from these fermented products. So just because you can't make it at home doesn't mean that you should just not eat it. To get started making your own fermented foods is a pretty simple process. I mean, I think that a lot of people are turned off by it because it seems like a much more difficult process than it actually is. It can be very simple. I mean, to get started, really all you need is a few jars, or even just one jar, and salt. If you wanted to make your own sauerkraut, all you're doing is cutting that cabbage up very fine and then salting it, and then you're like drawing out a lot of the juices, and then you put it in your jar, making sure there's no air getting in, and then, you let it ferment for, I don't know, it really depends, on like,
You kind of taste it.
and every so often you'll taste it to see if it's done. It takes about a week, I want to say, maybe a week to 10 days for sauerkraut.
Generally, depends on the temperature.
Exactly,
temperature can affect.
It's really temperature dependent, and humidity also is going to affect your ferment. But I mean, sauerkraut, that was the first thing that I ever made. Actually, that's not true. The first thing I ever made fermentation-wise was a sourdough starter. And that's also a very simple process as well. And all you need is water, flour, in a jar, and some cheesecloth to put over the top. Or you don't even need cheesecloth. You can use plastic wrap, which most people have in their homes anyway. So it's really simple to get started. You can make it a more complex process the more you learn about it, but it's not as hard as it seems to get started, and you really don't need all that much equipment.
And yogurt is like super easy. If you buy plain yogurt at the store, you just need your milk, and then you're using about a quarter of a cup of the plain yogurt from what you have in the store, and then you're good to go. And every time you want to make yogurt again, you're just using the plain yogurt. And anybody who wants to check that out, I actually have instructions in a video on my website that I have called oletsgrow.com. And I have a video of like how to make it. I also put it on my Instagram. But anybody who wants to have some instructions, of course, DM us. But I will make sure I put the link into that in the show notes, because yogurt is so expensive, and making plain yogurt. And for those who want flavor, fruit on the bottom yogurt or whatever, just put jam in the bottom of, and then put some in a bowl or in a dish, and then put some plain yogurt on top. When you're ready to eat it, stir it up and you're good to go. You will cut out a lot of sugar and other crap if you're
And
doing it.
making yogurt is one of the, actually, I did lie again. That was actually the first thing I made for fermentation wise, using your recipe and method, Mom. And it's very simple. It literally takes, what, 12 hours or so to make. You just
But
let it sit.
hands on is like, it's really just, you're heating the water to 180.
Yeah,
So it's just keeping
maybe
track of
an
it,
hour
not
per
boiling it over. Not that I've ever done that.
never.
Yeah, I did that the other day actually. But then it's
It's so
waiting to cool
annoying.
down, and then
Big mess.
it's that's it. Are fermented foods beneficial for the microbiome, our gut? Can I just take some probiotics and achieve the same benefits?
Well, I personally, I mean, I take a probiotic, but I also do eat a lot of fermented foods. A probiotic in like a pill capsule is targeting different, like, specific gut bacteria, whereas fermented foods are, you're kind of like, you're getting more of a range, like more of an array of things, and they're more than just a probiotic. They're also a pre and postbiotic. So you're targeting, by eating fermented foods, you're targeting way more of the, like, little gut microbes that are beneficial for you and aid with digestion and aid with all kinds of different, functions throughout the body.
Yeah, and I read this book called Eat Dirt, but I might put the link to that just as a secondary book recommendation. It's called Eat Dirt. And it was all talking about getting healthy and eating essentially for the gut. And one of the things that is so great about fermented foods, especially if you're making them yourself, is that you're getting the like terroir and the biome from the area in which you live, which actually has been shown to benefit the immune function, because it's like kind of choosing the things that are already evolved to help fight all of what's already in that area. So I found that pretty interesting, a little fun fact as to what another reason why it's really great to make it yourself.
Well, do you think that applies if you're buying, like, say you're making your own kimchi or sauerkraut, if you're getting stuff from the grocery store that is shipped in from somewhere in South America? I mean, I know that whatever, because fermentation, like, obviously you're letting the air out of the thing, but still, like, those, like,
There's a
those.
boatload of fungus and bacteria
Yeah,
floating in the
exactly.
air
And those
all the
things are
time.
coming from the air, so
Right.
like
So you're
you're
getting
still
that, but
getting some of the benefit. But I mean, obviously, I mean, we've talked about it in earlier episodes, like the best thing to, if you want to be like top tier for your health, like, going directly to the farmer where you live to get the things, but also, like that's not achievable for everyone. Like obviously fermented foods, regardless of where you're getting your produce from, is still going to be beneficial. But do you think like the terroir, like aspect of it?
absolutely, the vegetable coming local, and on top of that is like, yeah, like that's the cat's meow. I mean, that's the creme de la creme of doing the like the best for your body. But you don't it doesn't necessarily mean like if you need to drive from point A to point B, a car will get you there, so on a bus, right? But maybe, if you're fortunate enough, you can go for the fancy ride, but you don't have to, right? It's like you're still going to get there.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like still really important. Yes, ideal, grow it yourself, chop it up, ferment it, all of that. But if that's not possible, or you don't have the time, or even like the quote unquote the skill set, right? Because you're still learning, you're new to maybe gardening or all that. Next up would be local farmer, and then still better than just buying that sack of sauerkraut that they sell in the deli section that's in that plastic bag. That's not like, or a canned one, because actually sauerkraut, that's been canned and preserved has had such high heat to it that it no longer has the beneficial microbes in it.
Because it's been pasteurized, because
Correct.
it has to go
Yep.
through a certain process for it to be safe to sell in the store, which is
Yeah.
the same with a lot of, like kombucha as well. A lot of them are pasteurized and not raw, so
Yeah,
they
get
don't
the
have
one
it
that's
the
raw,
same. Yeah, if you can get the raw version, it's always better.
refrigerated. Yes.
Even dead, like ferments, like in sourdough, because it's been baked, it still has benefits to your gut. It's not just like completely dead weight. So.
Well, I think it's because it helps to break down part of the like gluten protein. So it's why the sourdough generally doesn't upset people's stomachs like and it doesn't have all the enzymes and additives, which we kind of talked on
Yeah.
our previous episode.
In yeast, which will can help to feed, not good gut bacteria like candida and all, like overgrowth type things that are not beneficial for the gut and lead to leaky gut and, yeah.
Yeah, all bad.
Yeah.
So that leads to the next question, I guess, is like, really, how often should one be eating fermented foods, and is it possible to have too much?
I mean, I think it's possible to have too much of anything. I think that if you're like only eating fermented foods, that's probably not good. It's good to have a variety of things. I personally have not experienced that to where I've eaten too many fermented foods. So I don't know personally like what the line is there.
Right.
But one should eat at least 3 ferments a day is generally the recommended amount of fermented foods. Dr. Tim Spector, his health company Zoe, that's what they recommend to their participants. Is 3 different fermented foods, and they have a ton of research showing that these 3 fermented foods worked into people's diet every day had all kinds of long-term health benefits, at least short-term, and I don't know that there's the long-term research to back it up yet, but yeah, in the short term, it showed all kinds of great benefits. So,
Yeah, yeah, we would have to
and
probably
it's,
go to like, Asian societies or where societies where like
yeah.
that's a kind of a common thing to then say, all right, in a comparison study of like population of a area compared to a population that doesn't, that's the only way you can kind of do a study like that. But
Yeah.
those are very extremely expensive and hard to do because there's so many things you have to control for. So, yeah, but
But
I
I
mean,
mean,
still
you
good.
can jinx. You can be your own case study. Start including like in the morning have yogurt with your breakfast or as your breakfast, and then coffee is a fermented food as well. Most people drink coffee. Include like some sourdough bread with your lunch, and then maybe with your dinner have some kimchi or sauerkraut, and then after dinner or after lunch have like a cup of kombucha or something like that, and just see how you feel. Like, I think experimenting with yourself is the best way to figure out what works best for you and your body. So
Yeah,
that's what I would
absolutely.
recommend.
So, is there anyone who should avoid fermented foods?
There actually are some people who should avoid fermented foods. Recently, I was recovering from mold toxicity and poisoning, and as part of my detox protocol, I cut out pretty much all fermented foods from my diet, just because some of the bacteria in the fermented foods can feed some of the non-beneficial bacteria that's growing in your gut. So anyone who's like seriously detoxing from mold, like if it's been a huge issue for you, I would just cut it out for a period of time, and then you can start to reintroduce it once you're feeling better. Also, women who are nursing or pregnant, it's not recommended that you eat a lot of fermented foods. Um,
Why is that?
to be honest, I'm not.
Suspicious that this is one
I'm
of those Americans, and you go to France and they're like, freaking eat the cheese, man. It's
Yeah, I
good
mean,
for
I'm
you.
not actually. That's just in my research. That's just what I saw. I'm not really. I mean, it's one of
Right.
those things that I guess we live in America. Women who are nursing or pregnant are told not to eat all kinds of different things. So like,
Whereas you go to another culture and they're just like,
yeah,
yeah,
and it
whatever.
doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
right.
And general, like overall, they're much healthier than we are here in the States.
Right.
So,
I would
I
say
mean,
like
take that
don't
with a grain of
start.
salt.
But pregnant women and nursing women also, they're probably eating yogurt, right? And I don't think
Probably.
anyone's ever been cautioned against eating yogurt. So like,
No,
yeah,
it's usually just like soft cheeses and stuff like that.
right, right.
So, I mean, I'm not exactly sure. That's what I came across in my research. If somebody knows better, please, I would love to be
Consult
educated
your
more on,
obstetrician, your
yeah.
OBGYN
But I mean,
is
if
the
you're here in the
leading.
United States, they're probably just gonna say whatever, they were taught, and no offense to most doctors, like they don't go through a lot of nutrition training, so they're probably
Yeah, they
just
get
gonna
one
try to
day.
cite verbatim what they learned in medical school, and they only had one
Correct.
hour of nutrition training. So, I mean, yeah.
We're
Also,
digressing. We are not medical professionals. If you are
exactly.
concerned, definitely listen to your doctor. There are those adventurous people. Like, certainly, I ate a lot of fermented food with all three of my pregnancies, and all of my children,
I
for
turned out
the most part,
okay.
turned out okay. No, I'm just kidding. They all are great. So, to each his own. Make your informed decision for you. Don't be
Don't
sheeple.
just like
Don't
listen
just
to
follow.
us, and don't
You're right. You just make your
also
own
don't
decisions.
just listen to your doctor because that's what they were told, like
Do your research, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe go to a different country or try to do research from a different country's like I don't
Yeah.
know.
Right.
Anyways, there are more people who are said not to or to avoid fermented foods. And that's people with histamine intolerances because it can like some of the bacteria can cause different like allergic reactions
Right.
from
So if you have
yeah.
an allergy to something, like I actually have an allergy to some, I don't know what it is, like a strain of yeast that's used in like often hard apple ciders.
Mm,
And there's like one type of beer one time I tried and I got an asthma attack. And so I just avoid those. But in general, like I mean, I can have like mostly it's the hard ciders. I think I only found one that didn't kind of give me like that coffee itchy throat thing going
mm,
on. So yeah, I have definitely experienced that. But it was only with that, and it wasn't like writ large. Avoid all fermented. So it is kind of one of those listen to your
case
body.
specific. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what
Yeah.
about like apple cider vinegar because
That's fine because I think whatever strain they're using for that, I don't have a problem with.
mm,
Because there are some apple ciders, like I get the Bragg
mhm.
one, which, it has the mother and it's really a good vinegar. I like it. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. So I think it's just whatever they're using when they're making the hard apple cider to get a certain taste profile. They use
Mm,
certain types of yeast. They don't always use the same
yeah.
strain or whatever. And so I think that's the cause.
Also, people with gut conditions should be wary of fermented foods. That's not to say that you can't have them because I personally have a gut condition and I find that fermented foods are very beneficial for me and I love eating fermented foods. I feel better when I include more fermented foods in my diet and I've never eaten something and noticeably had a bad reaction to it. So that's not to say that you can't eat them. Obviously don't have all of the gut conditions. So in my personal experience, it's fine for me. In my Crohn's disease, I think it helps more than anything. But that is to say, if you have a gut condition, just
Work with your work with whoever your medical provider is who's working
yes,
on
and a
on that for your
nutritionist,
guest. So
someone, a
yeah,
functional
exactly.
nutritionist is probably better than your, just general doctor who doesn't really know too much about nutrition. But that is to say, take caution and
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe, like experiment and try like small amounts first and if you feel good, then you can start to include more things. But yeah, take it slow. Also, immunocompromised individuals, HIV, cancer, and organ transplant patients should also be cautious and potentially avoid fermented foods. This is mostly a risk because of unpasteurized or homemade ferments can have potential to cause infection if they're not properly prepared because, this is a similar process to what we were talking about earlier of rotting, if it's exposed to air and bad bacteria starts to grow, you may not necessarily know. In the average individual who has a very healthy immune system and a healthy gut, you might eat something that you prepared at home which could have some of this bad bacteria, but your body is able to fight it off and you really don't have a reaction. But if your body is in a state of already not healthy and you already have a hard time fighting things off, it's maybe better to just work on healing your body first and then reintroducing these types of things back into your diet.
Right. And I would have to say that in general, most, maybe not general practitioners, but most specialists, it certainly seems more and more likely that people are getting on the focus on the gut health, and it helps so many other things. And so I think we're finally turning the tide where people are realizing that food is medicine and beginning to start to add that in even as a form of treatment. So that's something certainly to discuss with whoever your medical provider is prior to doing any of those things. But I think it is likely going to help more than hurt. So
Yes.
What are the different types of fermentation?
Well, there's 4 different types of fermentation. Everybody is most aware of is alcoholic fermentation, and that's the production of ethanol, which is found in beer and hard liquors, as well as bread. That is an alcoholic fermentation. The next would be lactic acid fermentation, and this would be found in things like yogurt and kimchi and sauerkraut. Acetic acid fermentation.
I think it's acetic.
Acetic. Sorry.
That's all right.
Acetic acid fermentation, which converts ethanol to vinegar. Butyric acid. I think I said that one
Butyric.
right. Butyric.
Yeah, because even though it looks like buttrick, but it's not buttyrick, it's butyric acid.
Butyric acid fermentation, which is found in things like butter and some cheeses, which I did not mention earlier in my list of different fermented foods. All cheeses are fermented foods, and as well as some butters, not all, I want to say, because some
cultured butters are.
Yes, cultured butter. Not all butter. If you just, take heavy cream, whip it, and then take out the liquid from it, that's still butter, but yeah, it's not a cultured butter product.
Unless you eat it with your pinky up and then it has culture. Sorry, there's dad jokes, but there's also bad mom jokes. Okay. But okay, those that eat Velveeta, first, it's not cheese.
But yeah, no.
And it's sure as hell not fermented.
Count. American cheese, the Kraft singles, that's not. That's plastic.
Flavored like cheese.
Anything that comes out of a can, what's that?
The spray cheese?
That's not cheese either, and it's definitely not fermented. It's also plastic.
That's a over processed food.
Yeah, ultra mega processed food.
Yeah.
So yeah, would not recommend. Definitely not beneficial for your gut health. Yeah.
And many other parts of your health.
Yeah.
All of it. Salt, high blood pressure. Yeah.
Just as an aside, I know I mentioned in the last episode, which was your episode on nutrient density, that the gut, when you are in vitro, is actually the first organ that forms in your body, and then afterwards your brain is formed. So some people consider the gut as the first brain because it is formed first as you are becoming a human being. So the importance of gut health is, it's informing all kinds of different functions in the body. And the vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve in your body and runs from your gut up to your brain and back and forth. 80% of the signals in your body from the vagus nerve are going up to your brain, whereas only 20% of the like inputs in the vagus nerve are going from your brain to your gut. So the importance of gut health is, I mean,
Well, yeah, it is super important. I mean, there's so many books out there now, where there wasn't as many when I read the first one, which was The Hidden Half of Nature, which was talking about like the soil microbiome and the gut microbiome. Great book, check it out. It's on our list and in recommended in our second episode about soil health and human health. I mean, it's just the kind of like we've opened up now and everyone is becoming more aware of it, which is super important. And my hope is that it becomes kind of an everyday kind of thing that is most people know as much or more about gut health than they do about the Kardashians, basically, is my hope. I
I
don't know if we'll ever get there.
thankfully know more about gut health than the Kardashians. But I mean, seriously, a healthy gut is a hedge against bad health for the rest of your body. You know, if you're feeding your good gut microbiome, it is preventative medicine. Like you are seriously reducing your risk of getting many other health conditions. But I do wish it was something that I knew more about growing up or as like a child. You know, I feel like this is something that should
Do
really
you
be
know
taught.
how hard it is to get a child to eat sauerkraut? Come on now. I
I mean,
tried.
I do
You're like,
because I
oh,
work
it
with
smells
three little
weird. You ate
boys, but
pickles.
but there's different, you know, you don't have to get them to eat sauerkraut. Lots of kids love yogurt and I make kombucha at work all the time and the kids love it. Like they also, you know, the house is always stocked with Poppy, that probiotic soda, which I
Hmm.
mean, I'm not trying to like talk bad on it because I do think like the concept of it, a mom creating this probiotic soda because she wanted her kids to have like a healthy option, but also like it's made with stevia and I just find stevia disgusting personally.
Yeah.
The boys that I work for, they like my kombucha way more than the probiotic poppy soda, you know, like these things just because they're different and have a like different flavor profile and might, you know, be a bit vinegary or whatever, like they're still delicious. And I mean, I make sourdough bread. I make like 4 to 6 loaves of sourdough bread every week and like to keep, you know, stocking the freezer and everything. And they love the sourdough bread. It's better than any store-bought bread they've ever tried. So, you know, like
Nice.
maybe it's not easy to get a child to eat sauerkraut, but they definitely will eat bread. They'll
Well, and
definitely
I
eat
didn't, well, I guess I
yogurt.
didn't make sourdough bread for you guys because I just made regular, kind of regular bread because I generally didn't have that time with the bulk amount that I was making when I had the restaurant. But I often made yogurt. So we
Yeah.
certainly
And I loved
had
your
that.
yogurt growing up. When I was, you know, when I lived with you in my senior year of high school, that was like my staple breakfast was some of your homemade jam and the yogurt that you made, and it was delicious. And but the knowledge, I guess I'm more so saying, you know, the
Hmm.
knowledge of like why these things are better than just, you know, the store-bought product and why they're helping you to be healthier. You know, those things I didn't know about. Obviously, I knew because you were making it at home, it was better than something that was bought from the store, but I didn't understand, you know, the connection of the gut and all the other areas of the body. And, you know, I mean, we all go through our own experiences and learn things in our own time, but maybe had I learned more about it younger, I might not have gone through the health struggles that I went through. But also, I mean, I might not, I don't have regrets, you know, I'm not saying that, oh, I regret you
Oh,
not
right.
teaching me these things because,
Yeah.
you know, the health struggles that I went through made me the person I am today. And I'm grateful for all of that because of the knowledge that I have now. So, you know, everything happens.
And like we didn't even realize. Like I went to the doctor when you were 6 months old and was like, "Hey, something's wrong with her." And he's like, "Oh, some babies are just like that." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't. I really always felt like I had a gut feeling that you had something going on with your gut, and you couldn't get a doc. Like one, I didn't know about Crohn's disease and all of that, but I also like just always thought like, okay, maybe she just doesn't tolerate these kinds of foods. So it was always trying to figure out like what foods didn't mess up with your system. Because I always thought it was like the foods that you were eating, and it was, but it was certainly like in general kind of that the different types of processed foods that you got in all sorts of areas, even from my house, because I'm sure I had Cheez-Its, because everybody thinks, well, that's what you're supposed to put in a kid's lunch when you're younger and not really thinking about it. So obviously knowledge is super powerful. One thing that came to mind though, you're kind of, we're talking about, people eating these things and, yogurt, and you make it or you buy it. Leads me to the like discussion is not all yogurt is created equal. Those squeezy things that they make for kids, that's I don't want to say the brand because I don't want to bash anybody, but y'all know I'm talking about. Even the one from the like quote unquote organic, that's junk food. It's basically junk food in disguise as yogurt. It's got a bunch of sugar in it. It has a bunch of food dyes in it. That is not what we're talking about, folks, when we're talking about eat yogurt, eat kimchi, eat things. Don't replace it for like, well, it's yogurt. They said it's good for me. It's like, no, 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 no. Plain yogurt, 5 cultures. And if you are going to go for something because you don't like plain yogurt and you want the vanilla or something, really read the label. And try to get the stuff that has the most pure, limited ingredients in it.
Yes.
Because there's some of those things that have like cellulose and guar gum, and the food manufacturers are putting that in there as basically so that they can not put as much actual milk in it or dairy in it.
Yeah, so the thing about those kinds of things that have the gums and emulsifiers and all those, they're not actually going through like the full scope of a fermentation process. Those things are added in order to give it the texture of real yogurt, and then if it says probiotics, like a lot of the time, like these things are added in after, and they're not actually fermented probiotics. It's like the same kind of thing as taking the probiotic supplement in a like pill form. It's like, it's not from the process of fermentation, and 2, because of that, it's not as bioavailable for your body, and it doesn't have the full spectrum of benefits like a truly fermented food does. Not all
So
yogurt
that's kind of
is
like
created
even
equal.
kefir. There's one of the brands, Stefan likes to buy it for those playing the home game. That's my husband, Stefan. He loves to buy the kefir, and it does have like, it is made in the process of the kefir, but it has like the flavoring, like it's blueberry or it's mango. And then it does have the added sugar. So like I just do yogurt. I won't drink it because I don't want all that other crap in there. But I mean, I looked at the labels, I kind of checked it out, and it is an okay product. It's like better than nothing. But if you could get used to having the plain kefir and maybe just putting it in a blender and worrying it up with some fruit to quote unquote create the flavor
yourself. You can add a
right.
little bit of honey, and fresh fruit, and it's gonna be one, I think it would taste better, and it's going to have more benefits for your health than the one that's bought from the store and has a ton of added sugar, because it's being curated for the American palate, which like just crave sugar all the time. So yeah.
Well, we should wrap this up with that final. Yes, exactly. With the final question. So we have one more question, and that is, so we've talked a little bit about this, but I think a little bit more in-depth discussion would be if I wanted to get started making my own fermented foods, or our listeners wanted to get started doing that, where can they source these starters without like making their own? Because obviously, like, yes, yogurt's easy because you can just get the plain yogurt, but for something like kefir or kombucha, where would one get those?
I mean, you can often order these things online. I think not the kombucha SCOBY that I use right now, but my first attempt at kombucha like a few years ago, I ordered one online, and I was able to get this whole kit that, it had the jars and the bottles and the SCOBY itself. And so, a lot of these things you're able to find online, and we'll include some like links for those things down in the show notes. Same with sourdough starter, like you can order them online, but if you want to go one step further, and like, I mean, they're pretty simple to make on their own. Maybe we'll do at some point like a recipe for how to make your
we
own
could
kombucha
just
SCOBY,
link
or
to
how to
one.
make, give instructions of how to make your own sourdough starter. But also, there's Facebook groups for these kinds of things too, or if you're in a Facebook group for your local area, chances are there's somebody in your area that's already making these kinds of things. So just
Yeah.
shoot, a message in there and be like, I'm new to fermentation and I really would love to, start making my own sourdough bread. Does anyone have a sourdough bread that I could get some of? And like, all you need is a cup of sourdough starter. And like, people who, like, I love sharing all these things with people. When people ask me for my sourdough starter, or if I have a SCOBY, like, I'm like, yes, I have a SCOBY, I'll give it to you. Like, every time you make kombucha, you get a new SCOBY. Like, I have a gallon-sized jar that has like many SCOBYs in it that I just don't, I don't even know what to do with. I don't want to throw them away. So,
Yeah. I put them in
this
the
is,
compost if I can't find somebody they will compost very well, but obviously, depending on where you live, you may not be able to do that. But yeah, you could find someone who would likely take that off your
yes.
hands, especially
Or
if
if you
you,
have a friend, who's
yes.
already doing these things, I'm sure they would be more than happy to, give you a little bit of their sourdough starter to get you started. Like, I mean, people love sharing
Very cool.
their starters. So,
So then let's chat about the book that you read for this.
all right, so my book for this week's episode is The Sourdough School, Vanessa Kimball. And I read this book a while back. This one is specifically about sourdough, obviously, as it's called, a sourdough school. But it's really great, like, in breaking down the process of making your own sourdough starter from, I mean, she also, if you go to her website, you're able to buy a sourdough starter from her. And then she gives all kinds of different recipes for different flavored sourdoughs. And just, I love everything about this book. I read it from cover to cover, even though it's a recipe book, which I feel like is kind of weird sometimes to read
Nah,
a
that's not weird.
recipe. I guess,
I do that all the time.
that's a chef thing to do.
It is.
But there's a ton of like knowledge and research and everything about sourdough in here, and she's an expert, and I loved everything about this book. And the full title is The Sourdough School, the groundbreaking, I can't talk right now, the groundbreaking guide to making gut-friendly bread. So,
Ooh,
and she
okay,
also
nice.
talks about milling your own flour if you want to do that. And, it's just like full.
Big old rabbit holes you can go down with that.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is a great book, and I highly recommend it for anybody who wants to get into making sourdough. But if you want to go down the rabbit hole of making sourdough bread, this is the book to buy. So,
We're ready for a battle, I believe.
yeah, we're ready.
Ready.
And this
So,
week's food is
kale
drumroll.
me, baby. Kale me. You're kaling me with this. No, sorry, bad mom jokes. Yes, kale.
Kale. And I know it seems a little bit odd to not have done a fermented like thing
You could
for
ferment kale.
this. You can really ferment anything, where there's a will, there's a way. But we wanted to keep it a bit more simple. What's the word I'm looking for?
Seasonal
More simple, yeah, seasonal.
and seasonal. Because
Or
this time of year, it's like, this is for essentially the end of March, even though we're recording it a little earlier than that. And and the one thing is, though, if you get your gut microbiome really happy, kale is like feeding that puppy, baby. It's like kale is so good for it. All right, well, you know what that means with the battle.
we'll
We've
see you in the
introduced the
kitchen.
food. We'll see you in the kitchen. Hey guys, welcome to Recipe Challenge. For this episode, it's kale. That's the vegetable or the item of the day. And Lauren sent me a micro kale salad with an avocado green goddess dressing. So a green goddess dressing is traditionally made with like a mayonnaise, and it is a very herbaceous one. And so this is kind of a take on that. The avocado is replacing the other fat in it. Other than there's a little bit of olive oil. So I made this last week, and I'm re-recording this because I actually made it per Lauren's recipe. The only thing I would say that I substituted out was I didn't have red onion, so I used a shallot. But other than that, I did everything per the recipe. Even got the cojita cheese instead of feta. So
this salad comes together super easy, going to make it into my summer repertoire for sure. Don't skip the step of massaging the kale because it is an important component of making this salad much more pleasurable to eat and chew. The salad dressing comes together very easy in a blender, quickly whirring that together. This dressing would actually work great not only in this salad, but on a regular salad like with leafy greens, or even with, let's say, fajitas, it would work well. Yes, the color is very interesting and bright green, but I think it really livens up this particular salad. Easy to put all the rest of the ingredients together on the kale, add the dressing, and toss together, and voila, ready to eat.
I'm going to try this and see how it tastes. Very good. I would say it's a nice bright flavor because it has some lime juice in it. It definitely pulls off of kind of the Latin American influence that's in this salad. A really great salad to be able to add a protein to, or because I have the breadcrumbs in here as well as the beans, it really does have a complete protein. So great job, Lauren. Although I think the recipe that I made last week, subbing out an onion jam for the onions and subbing out some flaxseed for the pepitas, I would say they're equally as good. Nice job. I would give it a solid 9 out of 10. Thank you. Can't wait to see what you do with my kale recipe.
Hi guys, welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be making my mom's sausage, kale, and sweet potato soup recipe. I've got all my ingredients here and I'm ready to get started. So let's get cooking. First, I started by cutting my onion. Then I moved on to garlic. Then I peeled my sweet potato and carrot. Then I small diced the carrot and celery and medium diced the sweet potato. Next, I sliced the kale in half and then cut into thick ribbons. Then minced my herbs. Next, I browned my sausage in the pot. Then sweat my onions. Mama said the rest of the vegetables, so that's what we're gonna do.
Then added the remainder of the vegetables to sweat. After that, I added the tomato sauce, herbs, and garlic. Followed closely by the chicken broth and beans.
Smells pretty good.
I allowed to simmer for about a half hour covered until everything became tender, and then I served.
Alright, so I've got my mom's soup all made here, and I'm gonna give it a shot. It smelled very good while I was cooking it. She recommended to serve with some crusty sourdough bread, and I added Parmesan cheese because what isn't better when you put Parmesan cheese on top? Maybe like ice cream or something like that would be a bit weird. But it's very delicious. It's a really hearty, and I don't know what the other word I'm looking for is. Hearty. It's a very hearty soup. It's really tasty though. Everything together tastes really good. The tomato in the broth adds a bit of like creaminess, so it's not just a fully brothy soup. I really like it. This would be great on like a cold winter day, or when you have a little bit of a head cold or something like that. This is a great soup to have. Gonna try it with the bread. Ten out of 10. Made even better so by my sourdough. But my mom makes a great sourdough bread too. Sorry, at this point I'm just eating, but you guys should try this recipe and let us know what you think. And if you have any recommendations for how you would change it or what you like best about it, let us know in the comments. And I hope to see you guys next time. Happy cooking. Thanks for joining us this week.
Fermentation is proof that traditional food practices can be powerful. But traditional food rules? That's another story. Next time, we're unpacking the advice we got growing up and deciding what stays in the kitchen and what doesn't.
We'll see you next time, but don't forget to check us out on Instagram at 2 Cooks Podcast. That's 2 Cooks Podcast. And in our link tree, you can find all the recipes we talk about to make them yourself. But don't forget to tag us and share your thoughts. We'll see you next time. Happy cooking!